welcome to everyone to this GAPF webinar. My name is Martina Penazzato. I'm the technical lead for GAPF, and I want to acknowledge the presence on the line of Dr. Soumya Swaminathan, WHO Chief Scientist, Dr. Ren Mingui, Assistant Director General for Universal Health Coverage and Communicable and Non-Communicable Disease, as well as Professor John Reeder, Director of Research for Health Department and TDR Program. We also have several directors as well as many WHO colleagues on the line, so pretty wide representation of WHO more broadly in this webinar. Before Dr. Soumya takes the floor, we would like to start this webinar with an important reminder about why GAPF was established and what is the need that we're trying to address with this important initiative. Let's look at it together.
Adults and children are affected by TB and HIV, but children face different challenges than adults when it comes to taking medicine. It can be difficult to swallow tablets, the taste can be unpleasant, and it can take a lot of time to administer medicine to small children. So mothers and caregivers who give children their medicine have to find creative ways to make sure children take medicine as prescribed. Here, the caregiver needs to give TB medicine to the child, and it's too big to swallow whole. So she needs to crush up the tablet with a spoon.
Sorry.
It is not easy, and it can be even more difficult if the child needs to take different types of medicine in the same sitting. Most medicines for children have a bad taste, making it tough for children to take and making it difficult to administer the proper dose. We cannot accept the status quo. Together as a global community, we must work toward developing safe and effective medicines for children that can be administered easily, ensuring those medicines are accessible at the clinic level for all families who need them. Children need and deserve child-friendly medicine.
Thank you to our colleagues from ECPAF for this really inspiring video. And now I'll hand over to Dr. Soumya.
Thank you very much, Martina, and welcome to everyone, my colleagues from within the WHO, but very importantly, colleagues from around the world, all the partners who have come together today, because I think we all recognize the importance and we're all passionate about making pediatric medicines available. So this just shows the level of commitment that we all have towards most vulnerable amongst us, that is our children. I myself am a pediatrician. I worked all my life on tuberculosis, and I know very well the difficulties that children face and that parents face in giving medicines to children, whether it's TB or other diseases, because of the lack of pediatric friendly formulations. And here we have on this slide the challenges that have hampered the development of these formulations. And I think I don't need to explain each of these, but starting from the biology of children, the differences in drug metabolism and pharmacokinetics, and therefore the different dosages that are needed, based on the age and the weight of the child. There's lack of data very often. Even drugs that have been used for a long time, we dose children based on adult studies rather than performing the pharmacokinetic studies in children. We have challenges with taste and administration, the formulation itself. So even if it's liquid, it's either very large volumes or the taste isn't good. And of course, there's a lack of market incentives with generally, relatively small markets when we're talking about children, and therefore this becomes a challenge. There's also slow market uptake of these products. If we go to the next slide, then essentially the spirit of the GAPF network is to translate every one of these challenges into an opportunity that we can solve through sustained and effective partnership. So our vision here is to contribute towards achieving universal health coverage by providing better medicines to children in need, because we have to remember children are also a major constituency for us. And so we cannot achieve UHC without thinking about how we're going to cover children. What is our mission? It's a global platform to enhance coordination for accelerating the prioritization, investigation, development, introduction, and safe rollout and use of high quality medicines and optimal formulations. So it's really an end-to-end vision and mission. And here you can see that starting with the prioritization and evaluation of the needs, we then go into the process of developing these products. We have to look at what's the business development aspects, the product development aspects, the regulatory affairs. Unless we simultaneously work on all of these issues, we're not going to really make progress. And then, of course, we have to talk about the delivery. So it's not enough to just identify and develop products, but then to deliver them, you need adoption by countries, adoption by the end users, of course. There are procurement issues, particularly when we're talking about small volumes. There's the rollout, the training needs for healthcare workers, the storage needs for some of the formulations. And then we need to continue to monitor, to continue to evaluate, to continue to do research, both social sciences research, as well as perhaps more biomedical research to look at the efficacy, effectiveness, and safety of these products. So the GAPF platform is really a platform for collaboration, supported by innovative financing mechanism that promotes a faster, more efficient, and more focused approach, right through doing the pediatric clinical studies to formulation development and introduction. Next. So this is a very good collaboration within WHO. It's one of those good examples of cross-cutting initiatives, and all credit goes to Martina, but also to the team, and the different divisions involved here are the science division. We have medicines and health products, Dr. Mary Angela and Dr. Ren heading the UHC and CD department, all working together. And I think that's my last slide and introductory note of welcome to all of you. Here are the co-leads of the team. This is a very agile team, and they are now going to take this work forward, but we also have a large number of external partners. We cannot do this just WHO alone. So I think the strength of this initiative is in the partnerships that have been achieved. And I'm going to hand over to John Reeder now to tell you more about the structure of the network and our vision for its evolution. Many thanks to all of you.
Thanks a lot, Soumya, and that sets me up very nicely for my first comment, which is really to say that though the network's anchoring itself within WHO, we're really at the same time strengthening our partnership to the 4 founding members that have been by our side through this whole concept. And I just want to call out the names of CHAI, MPP, Penta, and EGPAF up front. And I acknowledge that with GAPF, we're really standing on the shoulders of these and other partner organizations that have contributed to this work already, particularly in HIV and TB up to now. And what we want GAPF to do is to support, complement, and enable that great work to continue, but to see it evolve and see it be promoted on a wider global stage. So to do that, we've designed a pretty lean governance structure. The idea here is not to build some great bureaucracy around this, but the important point is that the Secretariat is engaged and collaborating very closely with the technical departments within WHO and really relying on those who are leading the individual technical areas. Next slide, please. But the Secretariat's also going to interface with our partners on the outside, and particularly through a steering group, which is currently made up of our founding members. But of course, we plan to expand as needed and as the project develops to keep us in shape and help us operationalize the work of the network. And this is in conjunction with 4 working groups. And I'll come back and talk a little bit more about them in a few minutes. But the other aspect of this is that we really want to be engaging periodically with also the financial partners. If you want to click it a couple of times there, thanks. Another click and another. And so we want to be engaging with the financial partners who are already investing in this work, and really to offer the opportunity of further coordination and make sure there's complementarity and that gaps are addressed. And we'll do this with a donor forum that we're going to co-chair with Unitaid, who we'll hear from shortly. And our long-term vision is, of course, to develop a new financing mechanism that can provide a more sustainable solution to the action that we need. We'll also benefit from the support of an advisory committee convened ad hoc, and this provides external perspective on some of our strategic decisions. We've got 9 individuals on that committee with a very different expertise covering clinical, product development, financing, and a whole heap of other different aspects. And we're really pleased to be working with them and getting their advice and input as we travel on this journey. We'll also engage periodically with industry. And I think, again, this is important, and our members are already forging partnerships on specific projects. We want to continue this and to expand this. And you'll hear some examples of this a little bit later on. Next slide, please. While our initial focus has been HIV, TB, and HCV, we're rapidly expanding the scope of work beyond these diseases and starting new collaborations in the areas of essential medicines for both communicable and non-communicable diseases as we move forward. And we want our partner organizations to bring the strengths and experience to the benefit of this network and really help us accelerate and multiply the impact with their know-how. Our partners will also contribute to the integrated work of the 4 working groups to enable collaboration and cross-fertilization across different diseases and to more rapidly find solutions to the common problems that were touched upon by Sumia a little bit earlier. Next slide, please. So the various groups, through these various groups, at the end, what we want to do is to promote innovation. And this is about interacting with various key stakeholders from families, innovators, regulators, funders, governments, and a whole range of other different sectors to try and stimulate an environment of innovation towards pediatric formulation and getting medicines for children. And so as you can see from these few slides, GAPF is made up of many of you are online today. And we know it's ambitious and we know it's a complex project. You only have to look at the variety of partners around. But we think it's got huge potential, and we think we can really help to shape that potential and realize that potential. So now I'll turn to Martina, who will share a few of the highlights of progress to date and look at some of our immediate focus and what we're going to be moving to in the future. Over to you, Martina.
Thank you very much, John. Indeed, we've been quite busy over the past few months in 2020 to really shape the network at its full potential, but also start and make progress on some of the work that we intend to implement. And we've done so in close collaboration with our funding members and many partner organizations that we look forward to work with. Overall, we were able to better define GAPF governance and structure and formalize it. And we were also able to identify and convene a first meeting with our advisory committee that John has already mentioned. We've also engaged more proactively with activities to engage our stakeholders. And we've talked with many of you on the line to really tell you more about who we are and what we would like to do. We've also started to put some more structure in the way we hope to engage with industry, not just on specific products, but also in some of the integrated activities that we would like to undertake in collaboration with them. We've finalized our visual identity and developed a first draft of our communication strategy that will help us to better communicate with our GAPF members. We have invited 30 organizations so far to join, and 22 have responded to that invitation and are currently in the process of joining the network. And this is where they're strategically located. to contribute to the various working groups with the work that they already lead and do in their own specific disease area. And in collaboration with financial partners, such as ELMA, Unitaid, Global Fund, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which are already investing heavily in this area of work in various disease areas. We're also exploring with US agencies activities to partner and to continue to build on our technical collaboration that is already there in many disease areas. As John mentioned, our focus so far has been largely on 3 key diseases: HIV, hepatitis C, and TB, building on the prioritization processes that WHO has led through the various technical departments. But we plan to expand this portfolio into essential medicine more broadly, and we'll tell you more about that. We are obviously continuing to refine this portfolio as we go along. And for example, in September, our colleagues in the Global TB program have led a review of the PADO list for TB and work with their partners to really consider and reflect on updates and progress and see and explore new emerging needs that may merit a revision of those priority products to develop. The HIV and hepatitis department has worked with partners to explore how to use the PK data available, particularly through our colleagues in Egypt, and explore the use of existing formulation to be able to accelerate the availability of treatment for hepatitis C in children and adolescents. We've also supported and worked all together to mobilize resources for what we call the Universal Project that you will hear more about later on to address the need of formulation for treatment of HIV. We've also just started a collaboration with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and other partners to ensure that we assess and explore the appropriateness of current formulation in the essential medicine list, but also identify gaps for development and future essential medicine list revisions. Lastly, when it comes to COVID, we have joined forces to map potential formulation and regulatory gaps for the key therapeutics that are under investigation. And we stand ready to support and facilitate any additional work that the response to the pandemic might require for the pediatric population. For what is concerned, the product development and regulatory affairs, there's been good progress on the project on beta blocker, and you'll hear more later on from Paul. Through the lead of CHAI and Unitaid, we've also supported generic manufacturers to submit for approval a new formulation of dolutegravir and plan for manufacturing in an accelerated manner. CHAI has also released an RFP to develop the fixed dose combination for darunavir, and this was launched recently, and we hope many manufacturers have joined that effort. We've also, as GAPF partners, contributed to the development of a technology landscape that we will hear more about directly from Unitaid later on. And we've also discussed and submitted joint feedback to the draft FDA guidance on antimicrobials that was recently put in the public domain. For product access and treatment delivery, we've worked and got together as partners to ensure that we have plans and we provide support to countries to accelerate the introduction of the new formulations that are coming up for treating HIV. And in particular, we're working with the Ministry of Health in Uganda to support documentation of that introduction and strengthening of the data collection tools that will be available to ensure safe and effective treatment of children living with HIV. And you'll hear more about this later on. This effort will also contribute to a broader piece of work that is being developed to set up a global data platform to pool information, but also to share knowledge and ensure that there can be a stronger approach to monitoring and understanding the use of pediatric drugs more broadly. So in the next 6 months, we come to really formalize the membership of our the membership to GAPF, and we want to continue and initiate some additional work within the working groups to really address that cross-cutting function and integrated and collaborative work that John mentioned earlier. We will also continue to refine and implement the GAPF portfolio and in various disease areas, and ensure that we introduce additional elements in those disease areas that we haven't started to work on yet. But we will also initiate a process to identify innovative financing mechanism in collaboration with our financial partners, because this is a critical step that we need to undertake in the short and mid-term. And finally, we will continue to ensure periodic communication with industry on various portfolio products and beyond. So really, with that, I want to close and thank all the colleagues outside of WHO that have really made all of this progress possible and have worked with us, again, in shaping and starting the work that we plan to take forward with GAPF. So thank you again, and I'll hand over now to my colleague Marie to take care of the next session.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Martina. I hope you can hear me well. So my name is Marie Valentine, and I'm the regulatory lead in the GAPF Secretariat. So we've just heard about the evolution of the GAPF network, and particularly how it was created to coordinate a response to the lack of pediatric medicine, appropriate pediatric medicine. The next part of our agenda, we will delve deeper into some specific aspect of the GAPF operationalization, demonstrating through the voice of our partners how the work we coordinate and support is translated into practice. So we are very happy to invite Sandra Nobré, the Head of Business Development at the Medicine Patent Pool, together with Umesh K, Senior Vice President at Aurobindo. They will share their perspective on the role and the prioritization process in driving and better targeting the development of the most needed pediatric formulation. Over to you, Sandra. Thank you.
So good morning, everyone. My name is Sandra Norbs. Thanks, Maria, for opening the floor to me and to Umesh. It is my big pleasure to take part of this webinar representing the MPP, so Medicines Patent Pool. During this part of the webinar agenda, as is mentioned and is on the slide in front of us, I will do it in tandem with Umesh from Aurobindo, representing the industry. So the objective we have together is to highlight real-world uses of prioritization outcomes by the originator and generic industries invested in developing and manufacturing adapted pediatric drug formulations. So our two perspectives will illustrate two uses of the priority list. So the first one, dissemination to pharmaceutical partners by global health organization, and this will be the MPP perspective. And secondly, the industry perspective on the benefits of receiving such guidance and on the implementation of the recommendations by manufacturers, which will be Umesh part. So starting with the MPP perspective, it is a fact that PAEDO-like prioritization processes help with our messaging to drug manufacturers. And you can ask us why this. So let's go back. In the past, and I will take the HIV example, there were many slightly different and competing pediatric drug formulations developed and made available on the market. This was, of course, detrimental, as it fragmenting an already very, very small market, thereby, of course, completely disincentivizing drug manufacturers' investments for adapted pediatric formulations. So the optimal formulary list for pediatric ARVs was developed to provide guidance to country programs, procurement entities, and funding agencies on on the minimum set of pediatric formulations needed to deliver WHO recommendations to pediatric population. This was combined with the work of the ARV procurement working group, known as the community by APWG, and it has helped strengthen, definitely, with no doubts, the downstream pediatric HIV market. But what about the upstream? So, however, to further support our advocacy with manufacturers and having them continuing investing in pediatrics, it was essential to address the upstream, the supply side. It was essential to have an alignment on priorities to ensure that most of the pediatric formulations were developed. So focusing on this need, the Pediatric ARV Drug Optimization Group, so the PAEDO, was convened to provide an evidence-informed priority list and a clear and consistent message to guide the industry and other interested stakeholders on the most needed ARV formulations for children to be developed. So since 2013, 4 editions of the list have been released. So PAEDO 1 in 2013, then 2014 for 2, 2016 for 3, and then the last on 2018, the PAEDO 4. And by now, for the ones who are not aware, I think most of you should be, but similar WHO-led processes have now been set up for HCV and TB, so very good news. So to summarize, if we ask ourselves, what have PAEDO-like processes helped us with? So I think there's a very straightforward answer. PAEDO-like processes have helped reduce the noise in the pediatric ARV space by ensuring that the right guidance was provided to both originator, patent holders, and generics. And this done, and this is, I think, is the biggest part of this and relevant of this information being disseminated this way, it was upstream of their product development plans. So, of course, both originators and generic were very thankful for this prioritization and guidance, and mainly where to invest their efforts and resources that have to be optimized, of course. So for MPP, as an organization aiming to expand access to essential medicines, the PAEDO list has helped as well informing where access needs are most pressing and what to focus on in the pediatric space. Equally, this has helped make the case with patent holders, and this is an important point, for broader access terms to be agreed in the pediatric specific licenses. So all in all, a great achievement towards ensuring that children receive the medicines they need and deserve in a timely and sustainable manner. So from the MPP perspective, I stop there, and Umesh, floor is yours.
Thank you, Sandra, for a good perspective from the MPP side. And it's my pleasure to be part of this forum and then trying to give us the industry perspective on how it has really meant to us in terms of processes like this. So from our perspective, I think there used to be some levels of inconsistencies among experts, providing us with their insights on what pediatric formulations we should be focusing our efforts on. Sometimes it has led to situations when companies like ours, who are always hard pressed for prioritizing the products and resources. So we develop products that might not have been the most needed for the pediatrics. I mean, it could be reasons related to the combination of drugs, like some of the FDCs, what dosages and dose ratios were used, and sometimes even the type of formulation, syrup, granules, whether it is dispersible or non-dispersible, scored, etc. Definitely, PAEDO-like processes have provided the industry with increasing certainty on what the global pediatric community, including PLHIV researchers, clinicians, WHO, CHI, ECPAF, PENTA, MPP, and all others considers as optimal, and of course also most needed. While initial iterations probably have been received with cautious enthusiasm, the continued engagement and the alignment internally between all those involved in developing this list with other stakeholders have really helped ensure the list became both appreciated as it should have been and also implementable. Especially, with the kind of chemistry involved and the compatibility of these FDCs and drug formulation development, it becomes important that it becomes implementable. We are glad to see PAEDO-like processes being developed in other areas other than HIV, especially building on the solid experience we have gained out of HIV. We're also glad that these processes seem to increasingly inform downstream work across all pediatric drug optimization initiatives like GAPF. We're also glad to see all parties engaged in pediatric treatment beginning to talk with one voice, which is very essential on pediatric drug formulation portfolios. And of course, and also the rationale for such priorities, including, towards clear and aligned product profiles, target product profiles. Especially, the specific drugs and combinations, dosages, dose ratios, and also the type of formulation, etc., is essential so that, it's integrated into the right clinical use and the corresponding markets. This alignment makes it easier to plan our activities, especially for companies like us, and some of my colleagues here also would agree that aligning of resources, the tech transfer efforts, licensing, regulatory processes, to register in many countries, where this kind of consensus helps guide meaningful exchanges with regulators and drive prompt and coordinated reviews. And of course, this also helps to meet ultimately the timelines. So GAPF efforts to coordinate pediatric drug prioritization, clinical research, product development, and introduction, so as to bring clarity, transparency, and one voice to criteria is most welcome and which are critical to our business. And we are sure that it's going to have an enormous impact on our company as well as the industry as a whole. And this approach to development of pediatric regimens is most welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sandra and Umesh. That was great to have your perspective and show the impact of the prioritization and also the importance of alignments of the partners. Thank you very much. Now we will turn to our two partners, Penta and Shai, who have been collaborating for a number of months and will illustrate how clinical research and product development can be planned and better connected from the very beginning, using the example of the Universal Project. So let me hand over to Professor Carlo Giacinto, President of Penta Clinical Research, and Melinda Watkins, Director of the Product Development and Regulatory Affairs at Shai. Thanks a lot.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present on this collaboration that has happened via the GAPF work we have done thus far. I will kick off this presentation and then hand it over to Carlo to take us through some more details. Next slide, please. So obviously, as has already been discussed by many of our WHO colleagues, we all know that the best drugs and dosage forms are not available to treat children, and typically novel combinations are needed. Most of these combinations would not generally be studied because many times they're owned by different innovators, and therefore these combinations are not going to be put together in the way that we see are needed to optimally treat children. There are gaps in clinical research, and modeling can play a very significant role in moving some of these products forward. So an example that we are going to show today has to do with a TAF-based pediatric combinations with DTG, as well as darunavir-ritonavir. And we all know that pediatric weight band dosing is very challenging because the amount needed over time changes. It makes pack sizes, the selection of pack sizes quite difficult, et cetera. So the number of challenges within pediatric dosing is quite significant. Next slide, please. So as you have seen the GAPF wheels, as we call them, we're focusing in on this collaboration in the evaluation, business, product development aspects, as well as regulatory affairs. These are the components that we've put together so far in the Universal program. And now I will hand it over to Carlo with the next slide to take us through the opportunity that we had investigated.
So thank you very much, Melinda. And thanks, Martin and everybody for organizing this webinar. I would like to start really with something that Dr. Sumia said. She said in her presentation, the strength of this initiative is partnership. And I think that we saved the opportunity to test this partnership in research when a call for proposal from the EU through their program EDTCP came out about 12 months ago, on the topic of pediatric drug formulation for poverty-related disease. And actually, we felt within the GAPF network, CHAI, Penta, MPP, and all the other partners, that we were well positioned to develop a proposal to respond to this call. And actually, considering the GAPF portfolio, we decided to focus on first and second line HIV product. We have already heard from Melinda, darunavir, ritonavir fixed dose combination, and TAF as a first line containing fixed dose combination. So the next slide, please. So that is how the Universal Project was conceived, and really to develop, evaluate and register 2 pediatric formulations to treat HIV positive children, as I said, focusing on TAF, FTC, dolutegravir fixed dose combination for future use in first line therapy, and on darunavir, ritonavir fixed dose combination for future use in second line. The next one, please. So actually, this is a consortium. We made our application, and the consortium was 16 participating organizations from 15 countries. So practically one organization, one partner per country, which is quite, yeah, and it's quite remarkable, I think, and quite a few from Southern Africa, Central Africa, and West Africa. So, and this is a consortium who won the application. We were informed around May this year, and we really are in the process to signing and finalizing the contract now. The next one. So how it is structured, the proposal, of course, I just want to give an highlight in one slide. So we do have really 3 research main work stream, which is one is on TAF, FTC, dolutegravir, which include an initial part of modeling, identify the optimal ratios, then to test this ratio with the clinical trial, and then this is for TAF, FTC, dolutegravir. For darunavir, ritonavir, it's the same research stream, modeling, and then a clinical trial. And in the meantime, and that is something that Melinda will focus on, really to develop the formulation. Also, we are going to set up a post-marketing surveillance real-world platform to look at the safety and effectiveness of this formulation when they will be rolled out. The next one. So this is really a comprehensive model of collaboration. We do have the Penta Foundation, as you know, has a long-lasting experience in running large EU-funded project, who is managing the network and the consortium. Then there is a very strong contribution with the WHO technical group, who are going to identify the priority and the data gap, the part of priority list, as well as MPP, as we have heard from the previous presentation, who are going to have a major role. But then what I think is also very, very interesting, and it's something which is really going to be quite an innovative model that we are planning to test with this collaboration, is really a mixed funding model. Of course, we have a significant amount of funding from the EU to run the project, but we will engage also industries, and we are already in contact with Gilead and Janssen, who have been very collaborative so far, and they will continue, I suppose, to be collaborative this project, and with the international organization as well. Now I hand over again to Melinda.
Thank you, Carlo. So in addition to the work that Carlo has mentioned, the collaboration continues, obviously, in the product development and regulatory affairs space. And that's where CHAI will take the lead on the development work. I do want to point out that the initial funding that we are starting with is from Unitaid on CHAI's Optimal grant. And that is, as Martina previously mentioned, part of the RFP that was recently launched for darunavir, ritonavir development. And that process is ongoing. But throughout the product development programs, we will be providing technical development and regulatory expertise and support to generic partners to accelerate the development and commercialization of the formulations. We are also speaking, as Carlo mentioned, with both Gilead and Janssen to collaborate on filling any gaps needed and working quite closely together with technical teams there. Part of the work that CHAI typically undertakes in these types of programs is also to negotiate on the final product pricing with the generic suppliers who will provide the accessible supply, and ultimately to support demand generation and new product introduction, which is in our working group through GAPF, also in the product access, treatment, and delivery group. Additional funding will be sought as needed, but as I mentioned, we do have startup funding and through the EDCTP funding as well that will focus primarily on the clinical work that will be led by Penta. We do have a mixed model at this point to support moving these products forward, and we're quite excited for this opportunity. Next slide, please. So Carla, do you want to take it on?
Thanks. Thanks, Melinda. So, of course, as in all international project involving resource-limited setting, it is absolutely crucial, the capacity building part. And we are going to train and invest in to strengthen the expertise, not just in running the trial, but also to develop new clinical trial design and also to manage regulatory trials, which is sometimes difficult and not so easy. Then we are going to work to improve the capacity of European and African side to develop and implement future clinical trial, as I said, that can lead to regulatory approval and also to perform pharmacovigilance studies. The next one. So what are going to be the next step? Clearly, these are the anticipated next step, but with the COVID around, everything can change or can have some delays, we know, as you know. And so the EDTCP proposal, as I said, was accepted, and the project will officially start in January 2021. The work plan, a detailed work plan has been developed. We already have some informal meeting among the partners, really try to discuss the different work package in an operational way. And of course, we are planning other non-HIV research area to be evaluated and implemented. Not, of course, within the Universal project, but I think Universal could really form a model then to do research in other areas. So the next one, here are the people that we need to thank, but I would like specifically, personally, to thank the team from CHAI. I mean, Paul, Melinda, Linda, it's really great to work with you. I mean, I think it's a fantastic collaboration, and we are really learning a lot from your expertise, and I'm sure that it will just be the first collaboration of many, many more. Thanks, and thanks again to the GAPF for this opportunity.
Thank you, Carlo.
Thanks a lot, Melinda and Carlo, for this double act. Thanks a lot. It was great to see this clear, strong collaboration that will also actively engage the industry as well. The last part of this presentation and this session will show us the importance of working together to safely introduce and roll out new medicine for children in countries. So we reach a milestone when we are able to create optimal formulation for children, but ensuring that this medicine are introduced safely and effectively is our ultimate goal. So I'm happy we have the pleasure to give the floor to Dr. Eleanor Magongo, the team lead pediatric adolescent HIV care and treatments from the Ministry of Health of Uganda, and Dr. Simba Mashiza from Childhood TB Technical Lead and TB Unit of ECPAF in Zimbabwe. And they will share their experience with working with GAPF partners to accelerate introduction and rollout of new pediatric medicine. Many thanks.
So thank you very much. I would like to start by saying that in order for us to be able to transition children to treatment, we need a very good policy environment that is able to reflect the changes that we desire. So having a policy environment and being able to have timely and participatory reviews involving all key stakeholders is very essential for successful rollout of new pediatric commodities. Very important also is the leadership and coordination, and this spans from the national level, where the technical officers do the initial preparation for the review of the guidelines, and also the senior and top management that approve the policies, but very important as well, the regional and subnational partners that move this forward by implementing the guidelines. And very crucial is stakeholder engagement, and the previous speakers have alluded to this. It's very important that we involve all the stakeholders and we create these networks and collaborations to enable us to successfully roll out our guidelines. Specifically in Uganda, PEPFAR and Global Fund have supported us to procure the ARVs, of course, with contribution from the government of Uganda. UNICEF supports us to convene the technical working groups, and CHAI has been very instrumental in supporting us to develop tools and forecasting for the ARVs. And we are also in discussions with the team, and we hope to get a catalytic procurement of DTG 10 milligrams to support us to be able to give a DTG to children who weigh less than 20 kilograms, whom we know are not able to access the DTG 50 milligrams. And DNDI and EGPAF have also supported us to do some materials that are crucial at implementation at facility level, as highlighted on the slide. And I want to spend some time highlighting the new collaborations that we've been working on with the WHO team. And Martina mentioned this earlier. WHO is supporting us to document the transition process of children as we transition them from DTG, from NNRTIs to DTG. In Uganda, we've been doing this in a phased way, and we are currently moving into our third phase. And Dr. Martina has been very instrumental in supporting us at country level to be able to come up with some of these innovations that are going to help us to move a step forward. And through Dr. Martina again, I was connected to the CIPHER team and to the UCL Penta team. And through this collaboration, we are going to establish an MOH cohort using public health facilities. And this will enable us to have quality and timely data from selected facilities to be able to inform us on the safety and effectiveness of DTG and any new additional pediatric ARVs that will later be introduced, as the previous speakers have mentioned. And we are very excited that this piece of work is going to be able to contribute to the pediatric HIV data platform as part of the GAP-F initiatives. Through this collaboration still, we will have capacity building for the MOH. The UCL team that we are collaborating with on this project is going to support us to build capacity for the MOH teams to be able to utilize this data as we set up these cohorts, to be able to utilize this data to analyze it and inform our programs further. Very important also is the service delivery. And the previous speakers have alluded to the fact that the COVID pandemic has caused some disruptions. But it is very important for us to note that even during public health emergencies, we should have innovations that enable us to continue to provide services, and especially to ensure that children are accessing optimal ARVs. Very important also is the health information systems. In order for us to accurately forecast our pediatric ART commodities, we need very good data. And the cohort that I've just mentioned is going to be very instrumental in complementing the web-based ART ordering system that we have in country. We've also been able to work with the PEPFAR colleagues to establish, to include pediatric ART optimization indicators in the SAG dashboard. This enables us to monitor our progress on a weekly level. And very important also is the human resource for health and the capacity building component. It's very important for us to note that as we talk about ART optimization, the health workers must be trained, they must be mentored, and they must be provided with tools that they will use to be able to support them to quickly flag patients that need to be optimized and to be able to follow them up. So we've been able to develop a number of tools, the checklist that picks out those who are eligible for ART optimization, the line listing tool that tracks them over time until they are optimized, the stickers, the scenario-based SOPs, dispensing messages to enable healthcare providers, give precise messages for each ARVs that they are dispensing. So with this, what do we need as MOH teams? We need to be supported to have timely and adequate stocks of ARVs and more child-friendly options for children. And I am very glad to note that GAP-F is actually addressing this already. Very important is the support for pharmacovigilance. As we introduce these new commodities, it's very important for us to include the pharmacovigilance component. Can the pharmaceutical companies that manufacture these drugs also provide support for countries to be able to do pharmacovigilance? That is very important. We need to be supported to have very good data through electronic medical records, utilizing patient level data, analyzing this to inform our programs. Very important is the technical support to document what we do in countries. This will enable learnings across different countries and therefore improve our programs. That is why we are very excited about the support from WHO, CIPHER, and the UCL team to support us to document our processes of optimizing children. We also need to establish learning collaboratives. And again, working with different partners, Dr. Martina again has been very instrumental in this, and the CIPHER team, Marissa, have been very supportive in helping me to start up a pediatric and adolescent HIV learning collaborative for the African continent. Our first meeting will be in October on the 24th and 25th. And through this meeting, we are prioritizing for this first meeting, ART optimization, so that we are able to learn from different countries how we can improve these processes in our countries. Again, through different partners, WHO, CIPHER, UNICEF, CHAI, DNDi, we are also going to start the International Pediatric and Adolescent International Pediatric HIV and AIDS Symposium for Africa that is going to support us to further learn from each other. And very important, we need support to utilize innovative platforms for capacity building and to hold partner meetings like the ECHO platforms. So in conclusion, it's very important to note that reviewing and disseminating new guidelines is only the beginning point. The real work is in supporting healthcare providers to implement the guidelines with fidelity. So I would like to thank the GAP-F team and all the teams for giving us an opportunity to present what we are doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Eleanor. And now we will hand the floor to Dr. Simba, please.
Good afternoon. Good morning, colleagues. It's my pleasure to be part of this forum. Allow me to share our experiences from Zimbabwe. Through advocacy and support from our partners, Zimbabwe has included disposable formulations of ethambutol and isoniazid in the national guidelines. Disposable ethambutol tablets have since been procured and distributed to facilities, and countrywide transition is taking place. To support this transition, a childhood TB medicines dosing well and information pamphlets were developed and distributed with the specific support from ECPAF and CHAI. However, procurement of disposable isoniazid is lagging behind. It is planned for October 2021 due to large stocks of isoniazid 100 milligrams film-coated tablets available in the country. Advocacy is continuously going on through technical working groups and other fora to consider prioritizing procurement of stock for children who are living with HIV. The budget for the procurement of child-friendly TB medicines is included in the Global Fund budget for the year 2021 to 2023. The program is also strengthening TB screening at all children entry points, including the HIV clinics, through implementation of integrative models of care and use of lay workers in the CAP TB sites to identify missing childhood TB cases and children eligible for TB preventive therapy. Capacity building and on-site support and mentorship on medicine stock management and stock monitoring is taking place with support from our various partners. The program is currently piloting the use of 3HP in the management of latent TB infection management with support from CHI. However, the country is currently experiencing challenges in terms of the 3HP pipeline. The piloting of the use of rifampicin and isoniazid childhood formulation in the management of latent TB infection was piloted in CAP TB sites with support from ECPAF from August 2019. And currently, there is now a countrywide rollout of this intervention. Collaboration is through technical groups, working groups such as the TB and HIV taking working groups, childhood TB taking working group, and the TB HIV, and technical meetings of which implementing partners are members, and they participate such as CHI, ECPAF, WHO, Union, and others. The other platform is the medicine quantification meeting, which is conducted twice a year, and stakeholders come from both the HIV and the TB programs, including the partners. ECPAF and CHI are currently collaborating in capacity building on new latent TB infection treatment guidance for children. This includes the use of the shorter regimens for in children, that is 3RH and 3HP. So multi-stakeholder partnership with networks such as the Global Accelerator for Paediatric Formulation will be critical to improve the lagging pediatric TB outcomes for children. Slide. I would like to thank our partners and donors for their support in improving TB outcomes for children in Zimbabwe. This includes Elizabeth Glaser Pediatric AIDS Foundation, CHI, the Union Zimbabwe Trust, Kinomics, Unitate, Global Fund, PEPFAR, WHO, and others. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was very great to have this insight. I will pass the floor now over to Asma, please.
Thank you, Marie. And thank you again to all of our funding members who've helped us illustrate examples of how we can work together within the framework of GAP-F. I'd also like to acknowledge and thank our invited speakers who've allowed us to note the engagement with industry and the ministries of health will be at the core of what we need to accomplish with GAP-F. Moving on, we would like to speak to how central to GAP-F the idea of partnership is. And it is really in bringing together the different organizations that are working in the pediatric space to share their expertise and converge on prioritizing and developing the right formulations at an accelerated pace. So together we can work on identifying common solutions to some of the shared problems that we have, or the shared problems that we face across various disease areas. So our next session is titled Building on Synergies and Leveraging Gaps in Various Disease Areas. We're proud today to have two of our new member organizations, the Medicines for Malaria Venture and the Global Accelerator, Global Antibiotic Research and Development Partnership, both of whom will share some of their thoughts on forging a partnership about and the value that they will bring to the table. So I'm going to invite Viveka Kazubska, who is the Vice President and the Head of Product Development at MMV, followed by Dr. Manika Balasegaram, who's the Executive Director of GARDP, for brief interventions. So thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Viveka Kashubska. I'm the Head of Product Development at Medicines for Malaria Venture. We are a public-private partnership organization located in Geneva. We were founded about 20 years ago, and our mission is to discover, develop, and deliver antimalarials. First of all, I would like to thank you for the invitation to become members of GAP-F network. We're delighted to be joining forces with you in accelerating pediatric medicines to children in need. In the next few minutes, I'd like to tell you a little bit about how we're approaching that in malaria, specifically at MMV. As I'm sure you're aware, malaria elimination is a global health priority captured in a number of SDGs. Unfortunately, a child dies of malaria every 2 minutes. We estimate that there are at least 3 billion people at risk worldwide with a devastating economic impact, and we're concerned that resistance to current medicines is rising. Children and pregnant women are disproportionately affected and remain our target population. Addressing pediatric needs has been and remains our top priority for those reasons, starting in 2008 with Coartem disposable tablets for kids greater than 5 kilo, and to this day with plans to register the same product for kids under 5 kilogram. You can see in this table that with our partners, over the years, we've secured approval of a number of products and dosage forms, such as granules and rectal capsules, different usages in uncomplicated and severe malaria, for treatment and prevention, and different strains of Plasmodium. Our work continues as we strive to develop new medicines for malaria. We want to ensure that they are available for our target populations from the start, not as a life cycle management product. Once a new candidate is characterized in animal studies and safety data collected in adults in phase 1, we start including children in phase 2 to find a dose, and then in phase 3 to confirm the dose, so that the registration, the first label, includes the use for pediatric populations. That is our goal. As you can see on this slide, we would like to do the same, or at least close the gap for pregnant women, as delivery of a healthy baby and reducing stillbirths due to maternal malaria will lead to lives saved. And here's a concrete example of the information gained by including children in phase 2 trials. This is a study we ran in 2015 of a combination of 2 drugs, one a new entity and one used in another combination. The graphs in the lower part of the slide show the mean plasma concentrations of each drug versus body weight. You can see that an adjustment of those for the youngest population would have been needed for phase 3. Unfortunately, we didn't reach efficacy required to continue the development of this drug. However, this is the approach we routinely apply, and we're currently running a similar study with Novartis for another combination. We fully realize this is not just about good practices in drug development. We need a network such as GAP-F to involve other stakeholders to ensure that we maintain the gains in treating children with malaria. This could involve drug developers, procurement partners, practitioners, public health guidance, and others. And finally, I would like to introduce you to my 2 colleagues, Hanu, who is our CMC expert, and Anna, who is our regulatory expert. Together with me, they will be the representatives of MMV in the GAP-F network. I'd like to say again how excited we are to be part of GAP-F. I believe we share a common vision of achieving universal health coverage by providing better medicines for children in need. Between us, we have the know-how, the best practices, the ability to innovate, to bring new medicines for children suffering from any disease. We at MMV have seen the power of partnerships and networks, and we're convinced that together with GAP-F, we will achieve full success. Thank you for your attention, and I'm sorry I was not able to attend the meeting today, but Hanu is online and happy to take any questions.
My name is Dr. Manika Balasubramanian. I'm the Executive Director of GARD-P, the Global Antibiotic R&D Partnership. COVID-19 has swept across the globe, disrupting health systems, economies, and threatening vulnerable populations. Another lesser well-known problem is spreading silently without boundaries. Resistant bacteria can infect anyone of any age in any country. Drug resistance already claims 700,000 lives every year. But it is the most vulnerable, children, elderly, and the hospitalized, who are hit hardest. Without urgent action, this toll is projected to increase exponentially. Investments in pandemic preparedness and antibiotic research are needed now more than ever. GARD-P, set up by WHO and DNDi in 2016, is working with more than 50 public and private partners to deliver 5 urgently needed treatments for drug-resistant infections by 2025. We also need to ensure that every person who needs these new treatments can access them, no matter where they live. This includes children under the age of 5 and newborns, who are among the most vulnerable to drug-resistant infections. With St George's University of London and Penta and partners, GARDP has just completed one of the largest ever studies on the care of babies with sepsis. This study, which has looked at over 3,200 newborns in 19 sites across 11 countries, will provide evidence to fill knowledge gaps, help transform treatment, and save lives. GARDP supports GAPF's mission to ensure children have accelerated access to optimal drug formulations. GAPF has made important progress on pediatric oral formulations for HIV, TB, and hepatitis C, and we are excited to see that it is broadening its portfolio to include antibiotics. According to a recent study, most oral antibiotics are formulated as syrups or powders. Only 16% of oral antibiotics sold in 2015 were available as oral dispersible tablets as recommended by WHO. Therefore, we look forward to exploring how we can be part of the GAPF network to develop improved pediatric formulations for both oral and parenteral formulations of antibiotics to treat childhood infections both in the community and in the hospital setting. Thank you.
Thank you for that intervention. I now have the pleasure of inviting St. Jude Children's Research Hospital to speak today. We all know that childhood cancer is a leading cause of death for children and adolescents worldwide. And today we will hear from Dr. David Rogers, who will share some of the key areas to address and how he would like to assist GAPF with this work. So I hand over to you, Dr. David.
Well, good morning and good afternoon, and I suppose good evening to some of you. And thank you for the opportunity to be with you today and to be part of this exciting and impactful venture. I'd like to take just a moment to share with you who we are at St. Jude and what we hope to bring to this collaboration and partnership. St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, and in particular, the Department of Pharmaceutical Sciences, is pleased to bring our expertise and insight to the table in partnership with other stakeholders in the Global Accelerator for Paediatric Formulations Network. This initiative aligns well with our organization's vision, which is to accelerate progress on a global level, and our mission, which is to advance cures and means of prevention for pediatric catastrophic diseases through both research and treatment. Consistent with the vision of our founder, Danny Thomas, we believe that no child should be denied treatment based on race, religion, or a family's ability to pay. And about 400,000 cases of childhood cancer are expected every year, but only about half of them are diagnosed. Of those that are diagnosed, a significant proportion don't have access to quality care and die. Overall, less than 30% of children with cancer can be cured around the world. Access to medicines is a major problem in this gap. Indeed, in a survey of our partners around the world, around 40% could not provide full treatment packages due to shortages in essential medicines. Our St. Jude Global Initiative is an institution-wide initiative aimed at reducing global disparities in access and quality of care for children with cancer. We have partnerships with more than 130 programs in more than 50 countries around the world, and we support them with educational, capacity building, and research interventions. St. Jude is the first and only WHO collaborating center for childhood cancer. In addition, we are, together with WHO, founders and funders of the WHO Global Initiative for Childhood Cancer, which has the ambitious goal of curing 60% of children with the top 6 cancers by the year 2030. My department, the Department of Pharmaceutical Sciences, includes leading scientists in the areas of drug metabolism, drug transport, pharmacokinetics, pharmacodynamics, and pharmacogenomics, and world-class pharmaceutical services with expertise in pharmacy operations, informatics, medication safety, and clinical pharmacy. Our department's research mission is to elucidate the basis of inter-individual differences in response to medications in order to ensure optimal medication efficacy and safety. And our department's clinical mission is to provide the highest quality comprehensive clinical pharmaceutical care to children with catastrophic diseases. Throughout the Department of Pharmaceutical Sciences, we are continually working to integrate research findings into clinical care as quickly as possible. We are delighted to partner with the World Health Organization GAPF initiative in finding ways to get quality essential medicines to the treatment of childhood cancer to every patient in need. Thank you very much, and I'll stop there.
As we now transition into our next session on promoting innovation, we're just going to show you a brief video that's been prepared by partners, the Medicines Patent Pool, which is on needing better treatment options for the future. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Nancy Auma Juma. I live in Kibra. I'm HIV positive. I've lived with the disease since birth. The moment when she realized I was HIV positive, it was hard for her to tell me directly that I was sick. So for her, she was waiting for the right time when she will tell me about my status. My mother was my caregiver. She was the one who was used to check if I'm taking my medicine accordingly. It was a challenge because the medicine, those ARVs were very huge, bitter at the same time, and again, you had to take them in the morning, again in the evening. So my mom had to come with a plan. She'll tell me, you have to take it, then I'll give you some sugar so that the bitterness will go away. That was how she used to trick me taking my drugs. But these ones, since I took them, I haven't seen those side effects. It's much better, easy to take, easy to swallow. They're not bitter like the ones in the past when I was a child. The hardest thing that they face, mostly the pill burden. The drugs are just so many. That's one thing. Another thing, those drugs are just bitter for them to take. You get that whenever a child takes those drugs, they vomit it all out. So after vomiting, no, that drug won't work. Sometimes you just get tired of waking up in the morning, taking the drug. I love as a young person, you just start asking yourself, why on me, why me now? So most of them wish that maybe it will come a time that you'll be taking that drugs maybe once a week, after 3 months, maybe a month. You don't have to visit the hospital. I will tell them to continue the good work they are doing. Let them continue improving the drugs so that it will be easy for us young people and for the younger children to take them and make it better for them.
Thanks. And well, I guess Nancy reminds us that children really do need medicines that are easier to take and taste better, easier to swallow, maybe take less frequently. And our partners at Unitaid continue to invest in long-acting technologies and how to take them into countries in the fastest way possible. Today, they're going to be sharing some of the new work they've led in scanning pediatric technologies. So it's a real pleasure for me, particularly today, as I saw in notifications earlier, Philippe's confirmation Executive Director of Unitaid. So big congratulations, Philippe, and I hand over the floor to you.
Thank you, and thanks for the kind words. I'm very happy to be with you, all of you today, because as you know, it's quite important. We believe that there is a need to push the agenda for pediatric formulation. It's a given for you, but let's remind us that when we start to work as Unitaid, working with you, by the way, we had no formulation for child for HIV, no formulation for TB, no child formulation for new combo with ACTs. So it seems a long time ago, but still, you know, the challenge. And I think that there is something that we have all in common, is that we know that children are not small adults. And that's why this whole initiative is about. So I want first to say congrats to you for the initiative. I think that we know that working together, we can make a huge difference. And we are happy to be part of this. And I think that's it's quite a day, not only for me, but just to, again, to know that with all the work that we have been doing with CHI, with the Medicine Patent Pool, with WHO and others, I think that we are, it's quite good that we can, even if it was a bumpy road sometime to achieve to go with DNDi for lopinavir, ritonavir, for example, pediatric formulation, now also the new dolutegravir. And of course, it's important to have the industry on board. So, so far we have invested $1 billion into the pediatric formulation and create the market. Again, for us, it's quite key in our DNA because we know that there is a lot of needs that are still out there, and we need to find a way to build on what we have been doing. I think that the expertise of WHO in PADO, for example, and again, thanks for the team of United to be part of that. I just want to have a warm word for Carmen, who is the, as we say in French, the aiguillon in all this work and the thinking and engaging with you on a day-to-day basis. So again, I'm very pleased for the work and the work to come. But on top of that, it's a very special day today because, as you know, we published the technology landscape, which is a piece of work that we have been doing with you and to make sure that we understand what are the challenges, but also the opportunities in terms of technology. But it's not just a publication, it's also the call for action that we will, in fact, we have issued today until the end of November, the 25th of November, if I may write. And the fact is that we call for looking at specific technology like long-lasting, but also other type of dispersible that can use less water, for example, which is a key element for kids having the medicine properly. So you will see the call. We hope we have a new mechanism, by the way, to respond to that. That's why we issued a call. It is named United Explore. So we can have small grants quite fast to push development of specific technology that we believe it will be appropriate for pediatric medicines. So I will stop there, but again, we are very glad to be part of this initiative and to do our work because we believe that it's the right one to do. Thanks, and over to you.
Great, thanks, Philippe, and thanks a lot for Unitaid for launching this important document today and sharing these updates and opportunities. We look forward to working very closely with you. As we mentioned a little bit earlier, GAPF wants to promote innovation and help bring new technologies to the benefit of children. And this is work that's actually already started. And we're now going to hear an example how we're actively expanding our understanding of the underlying biology to be able to do this. So I'd like to hand you over to Paul Domanico, who's the Senior Director of Global Health Science at CHI. And he's also the co-chair of the GAPF Steering Committee. So Paul, please, the floor is yours. I have no sound yet. You may be muted, Paul.
Okay, how's that?
Perfect.
All right. Well, thank you, John, for both introducing me and reminding me to unmute myself. Thank you, Philippe, for summarizing Unitaid's call to action. It's much needed to improve pediatric formulations. In the document you mentioned, there was a nice review of a variety of technical landscapes on pediatric medicines, and you discussed the importance of taste masking and bitter blocking. And I want to focus on that and summarize ongoing and cross-cutting GAPF work streams to develop bitter blockers for pediatric medicines. I do not have any slides to share, but GAPF does intend to share details from this webinar, as well as updates on all the activities that we are performing on a regular basis. Let me start with some background around bitter blockers. Our mouth, our tongue, and nose work together to generate remarkable sensations that we call smell, taste, and texture. Taste is a substantial component of palatability, and bitterness is a substantial contributor to poor tasting products. Many pediatric products are bitter, and unfortunately, as drugs get more potent, they tend to get even more bitter. In fact, and as you saw in the 2 videos today, some of the drugs are so bitter that caregivers struggle to get their children to take these medicines. This battle can lead to poor adherence, which can lead to disease rebound. We have learned, though, that taste masking a drug's bitterness by using sweeteners and flavors is difficult and does not necessarily work universally. What masks a bitter taste for a child in one part of the world may result in a very unpleasant sensation to a child from another part of the world. Hence our focus on bitter blockers. We already know a great deal about how we sense bitterness. We have roughly 25 receptors in our mouth that are part of a bitter receptor family, and we know that a subset of this family is largely responsible for sensing bitter drugs. We have shown under controlled conditions that not everyone senses the same drug as bitter, and not everyone responds to a particular bitter blocker. But we believe we know why. And as a consequence, we think it is possible to create a set of universal bitter blockers for use against a related set of drugs. So while the development of bitter blockers is a relatively new area, we have a lot going for us. GAPF is doing everything possible to bring together the necessary talent to perform this work efficiently and with a sense of urgency. In partnership with the GAPF Prioritization Working Group, we have identified several drugs whose durability would be dramatically improved by using bitter blockers and reducing or eliminating bitterness. Our current work is focused on the HIV product TAF, tenofovir alafenamide fumarate. We are working on an anti-malarial drug in partnership with MMV and discussing antibiotic priorities with GARD-P. And finally, we are reviewing drugs for hepatitis C. In partnership with Manel, Chemical Senses Center, we are working to understand the diversity of bitterness sensing, or the bitterome. We are exploring how specific drugs in the GAPF portfolio lead to a sense of bitterness across people from sub-Saharan Africa, India, and Southeast Asia. This work will highlight which receptors are responsible for these differences and why. And then acting on this information, we will improve our ability to identify bitter blockers that work in most children. In partnership with the Manel Center and Discovery Biomed, we have designed a thorough but efficient approach to identifying new bitter blockers. The science includes cellular assays based on immortalized human T cells and several other cellular reporter assays to quantify potency, specificity, and safety. As the work on the human bitterome progresses, we tend to update our drug screens to account for this new knowledge. Candidates from these various assays are then tested in adults to confirm that we are blocking drug bitterness. Related work, I would like to point out, shows that we will be able to translate these findings to children. In due course, products that meet preclinical performance metrics will move through a suite of clinical, product stability, and formulation steps before becoming part of an approved pediatric product. GAPF has created a number of partnerships to advance this work. I've mentioned the partnerships between CHAI, Manel, and Discovery Biomed. I would like to expound on our partnership with MMV. MMV and CHAI have agreed to partner on the development of bitter blockers and integrate our research efforts where appropriate and where that approach leads to economies of scale. We also intend to share learnings from our ongoing work and the many steps that follow to ensure future pediatric products can be efficiently developed and manufactured to international standards of quality. We have spoken to Google, as well as experts in computational chemistry, to explore better ways to prospect for new bitter blockers. We are also actively reaching out to various organizations and consortia to gauge their interest in working with us. So if anybody on this call is interested in learning more about bitter blocker research in pediatric medicine or joining us on this journey, please contact me. In closing, our goal is to eliminate bitterness as one of the causes of poor adherence. Ideally, our aim is to coordinate the development of pediatric products and bitter blockers so that better, child-friendly products are introduced as soon as possible. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Paul, for sharing that really exciting area of work and really showing the partnership with academia, biotechnology, and others to put that thinking into pediatric products and innovation, very much as Philippe was saying. We really need to get this untapped potential aiming towards better medicines for children.
Thank you, John.
I see on our schedule that we had some Q&A, but I think we're running pretty tight on time here. So I'm being waived the fact that we will be able to continue some Q&A after the session, but I should move on at this stage to the closing remarks. And to do the closing remarks, I got great pleasure in handing over to Dr. Ren Mingwei. Ren is the Assistant Director General for Universal Health, Communicable and Non-Communicable Diseases. And so he has had a very close engagement with GAPF up to now and has been extremely encouraging of its potential for the future. Over to you, Ren.
All right, thank you, John. Dear colleagues, partners, and friends, I would like to acknowledge and thank you all for participation in this very important discussion. Today, we have relaunched the Global Accelerator for Pediatric Formulations as WHO Network, a network through which we can determine to catalyze the strong collaborations within and outside WHO. We know the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development Goals puts the world's most vulnerable and marginalized people, including the children, at the top of the agenda. While there has been significant achievement already made, urgent action is still needed to ensuring that our children are not left behind. Universal health coverage cannot be achieved if the medicines incorporated pediatric formulations are not available to prevent and treat common causes of morbidity and mortality in infants and children around the world. It is very exciting, which I share, to see today so many partners, organizations are coming together with a strong commitment to identify and implement a solution to tackle this problem. It is building on their and on your experience and a strong supporting the countries that and the work that the Global Accelerator for Pediatric Formulation will accelerate as research development and introduction and roll out of the better medicines for children. We'll continue to connect with many of you as our work evolves and expands, and we welcome and appreciate new ideas and efforts that may help us to reach our common goals faster and better. So with that, I thank you very much again. We are looking forward to working with you very closely in the days to come. Thank you again. John, over to you.
Thanks very much, Ren. Very, very well closed. So I think we'll close there. And all I just wanted to say is to give my great thanks to the Secretariat who pulled this launch together. And particularly thanks to the partners and those who are talking to us to become partners in GAPF. This has got fantastic potential. I think we can really make a difference for medicines for children. So I'm very encouraged for the turnout, and I hope you share our enthusiasm, get with us and work. GAPF is all of us, not just WHO. We need to work together to get some progress and get some real achievement in child health. Thanks very much and have a great afternoon, evening, morning, wherever you are in the world right now. Thank you.